That was the thought that kept going through my mind is what if we lose Payton and my kids have to grow up without their mom?
I've been in practice for 5 years as a wound management physical therapist in the School of Allied Health Professions.
I met Payton when I was a freshman in high school. I just loved spending time with her. She was just a great person altogether.
Both of our families are still in Alexandria, and then Jay's sister is in town for medical school, so she's been a ton of help.
She was my role model. She was who I looked up to, and I wanted to be just like her. We kind of grew into this best friends relationship, and then not long after that, we grew into a true sister relationship.
So on April 23rd, 2015, I woke up, got my kids dressed like I normally do, took them to daycare, saw patients all day, and then I had a lecture scheduled for 4:20 that afternoon. And it's a lecture that I do once every 6 weeks to a group of third-year medical students on their surgery rotation.
You know, we had had a long day. We were all studying for our shelf exam, so we all were balancing studying and working, and it was just another lecture for us.
I'm told that I got up to the podium, and I always start out the lecture by saying, I want this to be very informal, and within seconds of starting the lecture, I fell.
My first thought was that she was passing out, to low blood sugar, something like that. We watched her just kind of slide down behind the podium. My whole group just got silent. And then all of a sudden we look up and she was seizing for a few seconds and then just went totally still. So as soon as I saw it, a few guys closer to the head of the table jumped up and were going to start CPR and, take measures and try to figure out exactly what to do. And I went out the back door of the room and just went and banged on the residence lounge.
Dr. Sammer was walking from the surgical ICU back over to the third floor and told me that there had been a code over in the lecture hall in the medical school, and codes outside of the hospital generally need a little bit more support than the codes that happen inside the hospital. When we got there, Payton McCalmont was on the floor, and shortly after we put the AED pads on her, she lost her pulse again, and the machine advised a shock, and so she was shocked back into a normal rhythm. By that point, the code team had showed up with a stretcher, and we put her on the stretcher and were able to bring her over to the emergency room.
I got the phone call, and it was a doctor from the ER and wanted to ask me some questions about Payton. All I could think of was, is she okay? Is she okay? I immediately got in my truck. I think I hold the record for fastest time between Stonewall and Shreveport. So as soon as I got to the hospital, my sister was there. She met me, and we immediately went to the ICU. Dr. Walter was there. He explained that Payton had had a cardiac event. When he said that she was unresponsive, that's when I really started to panic and really got worried.
Out-of-hospital arrest is not usually witnessed, which usually means that the person will die. When it's a witnessed arrest, the survivability gets better. It's still not great.
Everything that Dr. Walter would say, I would look to my sister for a translation. She was like my medical dictionary.
To the best of my knowledge, to the best of what I could do, I tried to just explain to Jay and kind of calm him down and provide reassurance that this is what is necessary to do in order to make sure that Payton gets the best care.
One of the big questions after the cardiac arrest is, does the person wake up? If the person doesn't wake up, then you worry that there's been injury to the brain, and that's when you start considering whether cooling them down or doing therapeutic hypothermia will benefit them.
They came out after they told me there was no meaningful response and said they were going to start to cool her body down.
We know that after cardiac arrest, cooling people for at least 24 hours results in substantially better outcomes. We had discussions with the family explaining, we're looking at a 3-day or so window where we won't really know anything.
I was very upset during that time, so I just kind of lost track of time. It felt like forever. I was just so ready to get in there and see her, and they prepared me and told me that, she's going to be hooked up to these machines. She'll have a tube down her throat. She won't be responsive, and I just wanted to see her, to be able to talk to her. That was the thought that kept going through my mind, is what if we lose Payton and my kids have to grow up without their mom? And that upset me the worst, because I know what Payton means to me, and I know how much she loves her kids and what they mean to her. Payton's dad, David, was visiting her grandmother in Hattiesburg, so I knew at some point I had to call him.
I could not imagine that had happened to her, 31 years old, really good health. So I arrived in Shreveport about 1 o'clock. I was not really prepared for what I saw. She had lots of tubes in her, lots of IVs hooked up to her. She was in a coma. So all day Friday, it was just kind of a waiting game.
We were all sitting in the waiting room. We probably had, oh goodness, at least 20 or 30 people at that point just come in to give their support.
One of the nurses came and got me and said she's awake. And when I got in there, Payton, was opening her eyes. You could ask her questions, and I believe she would nod her head or grab your hand.
When I woke up in the MICU, I immediately started asking what happened, where are my kids?
I had gotten the worst news of my life the day before, and the best news of my life, at that moment.
That was the moment that we knew things were going to be okay. And we had a lot of recovery, ahead of us, but to know that she was okay and that we could do the recovery, whatever road we were about to take, we were thankful for it.
I took care of Payton about 2 to 3 days while she was in the medical ICU.
I tell people that poor Sam probably helped me with things and saw parts of me that not even Jay has seen. He was just went above and beyond.
Payton was an amazing patient. I've never met someone to be so grateful and kind.
One of the critical things for me in cases like this is not the patient on day one, because the patient doesn't know what is going on. It's usually the family, because the family is in great shock and they are very confused about what happened to their loved one.
Dr. Dominic is fantastic. During this whole ordeal, he was very helpful. He explained things to me in a way that I could understand them.
The family needs a plan, actually. Usually what I do is I pick up a paper, I draw figures, I show them what the heart's conduction system looks like, what probably happened in this case, and why it's important to treat her the way we're treating right now. The next thing I do is to give them a concrete plan of what we're going to do that day, the next day, and in the following days to come.
After I left the MICU, I was put in what they call a step-down unit, and only stayed there for a couple days.
When she left the hospital, it was very much a joyous occasion, but it was also kind of scary.
Before I even left the hospital, it was decided that I'd have an internal defibrillator placed.
It kind of helps monitor Payton's heart, the electrical activity in the heart, to say that if the heart goes back into an abnormal rhythm, the ICD will track it, and then it will deliver a shock if it needs to.
The thing that worried me the most is that Dr. Dominic said, you got to test the device.
Because there is a small chance that you may be able to put them into the dangerous heart rhythm, but not take them out of it. We have to do it because we need to know if the defibrillator is working or not.
But for us, it was just the day of kind of the unknown, but also this relief of she's getting the treatment that she needs, and we can kind of go from here and really take that worry off of what's going to happen if she goes back into cardiac arrest.
Jay and I had like a little scare with the ICD after it was put in. Dr. Dominic had given Jay his cell phone number, and so Jay texted him, and Jay said, Dr. Dominic, we're so sorry. We apologize that we've interrupted your day, and it was just a false alarm. And Dr. Dominic texted him and said, Jay, my friend, we're in this together, and there'll be lots more things like this. And, we'll all get through it. But just the fact that he took Shay, my friend, just made him so much more than a doctor.
Life has, to the best of its ability, returned to normal. We look back on that experience and are thankful for the outcome, and we'll never lose sight of that.
A month ago, I was walking in the hospital and I saw Payton actually walking. She works in the hospital. It gives you almost goosebumps to see her, walking as a normal person after you've seen her as a patient and, you've done all these things.
University Health is a really unique place because it is a teaching hospital. If the attendings are teaching people, they have to really know what they know to teach people. I mean, if you're Dr. Dominic, you have to really know a lot about the heart to teach a fellow or a resident.
One thing that we've seen over and over again is medical schools actually produce doctors that mostly stay in the area and serve the people in the area. So if you don't have a medical school, especially for a place like Shreveport, the opportunity to attract a good doctor from outside the area to come and practice medicine here and take care of patients is going to be extremely difficult. There are two reasons for me to do research. Number one, what I'm doing today can help people once they have an event. The more important point is, what do we do to prevent these events? So, for example, if patients have a sudden cardiac arrest, we know how to treat them. As I said, about 95% of the time, we may not be able to even figure out what exactly caused the event. And so more research needs to go into that field to figure out how to prevent these.
Payton was in the right place at the right time with the right people.
I can't help but think that in a single day, I could have lost my entire family, my wife and 2 kids. If Payton would have been in the car taking my kids to school or picking them up from school, in an instant, my whole world would have changed dramatically, and I don't know that I would have ever been able to get over that.
We prayed a lot, but we also know that God used modern medicine along with men and women who were gifted and talented and had given their life for moments such as this.
If I could get everyone in here that helped save Payton's life, I would tell them how grateful I am. I'll be forever in their debt.
Thank you so much for the time you spent in a classroom years ago learning all this, because you got to put it into practice with me. I needed you to remember all that stuff that you learned way back when. So thank you for that. But most of all, thank you for giving me back my life, for bringing me to this point that I'm healthy and completely back to my old self.
They gave us a gift. They gave me my sister-in-law back. They gave my brother his wife back, my niece and nephew their mom back, and we're thankful for that. And I don't think there are enough words in the world for me to be able to tell them how thankful I am.